To my entrepreneurs, let me tell you something that you probably don't know. You're not stuck because you made a wrong decision. You're stuck because you're waiting to feel ready before making one.
Welcome to Success Spectrum Podcast, where new entrepreneurs break free from limiting beliefs, build unshakable financial confidence, and step boldly into the life and business they were meant to create.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Success Spectrum Podcast, sponsored by Apex Affiliation. I'm your host, Kadeem McLean. Now, over the last month, we've talked about decisions, systems, consistency, and focus. On this one today, we're closing the loop because even with all of that, there's still one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs, it keeps them from moving forward. And what is that? That's they don't feel ready. They just don't feel ready to make a decision, to make a move, to move forward. They're often telling themselves, I just need a little more clarity. I don't want to rush this. I'll decide once I feel more confident. These are things that entrepreneurs often tell themselves, which keeps them stuck. They're waiting, and waiting can feel responsible, right? It kind of feels like, okay, I'm waiting for that level of confidence. I'm waiting for that level of clarity. I don't want to rush this. Haste makes waste. Let me be careful and take my time with deciding on this thing. But oftentimes that waiting is disguised as avoidance. So we got to be careful with that. There's a distinction to be made there. It can feel smart because, again, we're waiting to feel confident. We're waiting to get a little more clarity, maybe gather some more data, whatever the case is. But that can feel smart until it becomes the reason you're not moving forward. And this mindset, I'm speaking from experience, can lead to overthinking. And when we're overthinking, what that does to us, or for us on a negative side really, is it keeps our options open, is what it feels like. It really avoids committing, right? We're keeping our options open. Therefore, we're not committing to one thing. We haven't decided. We're not making a decision and moving forward. And it creates the illusion of progress. We feel like we're deciding things, we're figuring things out, we're mapping it out in our mind, so we're making progress, but really, we're not making any progress. There's no tangible result. There's no feedback that we're getting, which shows that, hey, we're making progress in this area. So when we're trying to think our way into certainty, it's not going to happen. There's no thinking your way into certainty. There's no thinking your way into clarity. It doesn't come from thinking alone. We need to take action. We need to decide and get some feedback. Overthinking, we can look at it as preparation because, again, we're mapping it out in our minds. We are seeking that clarity. We're making sure that we are making the right decision for whatever we're aiming to accomplish. It's not preparation, though. Overthinking it's protection. We're really protecting ourselves because we're avoiding making a decision and we don't want to make the wrong decision. So we're just staying in indecision. But the longer we stay there, the more difficult it becomes to make a decision.
What if shopping could earn you cash instead of just costing you? You've been stuck in the cycle, tap, swipe, spend, watching your paycheck just disappear. But one day, after you stumbled onto this app called Rakuten, you ask yourself, why am I paying full price when I don't have to? But then you think, maybe it's just another gift. Then one of your friends tell you about this app called Readiness, who makes them money and gives them cash back and rewards for thousands of stores every time they make a purchase that they were made anyway. You try it once, you discover hidden deals, compare prices, and you start winning. Shopping becomes a strategy. Every tap pays you back, and you still get what you want. You share Rakuten with your friends, watch your income grow, and become more financially confident. Download the Rakuten app today and keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket.
See, there's a common misconception. We think clarity leads to confidence, which leads to action. But that's not the way it really goes. The way it really goes is you take action, you get feedback, you make adjustments because that feedback is telling you what worked, what didn't work, what worked okay but needs adjustments, and that leads you to clarity. You take action, you get feedback, and that leads you to clarity. That is the way it really works because clarity comes after movement, not before it. When you take action, you're allowing your audience, your customers to give you feedback to say, you know what, Kadeem, I really didn't like that thing. It needs some adjustment. Okay, great. Let me sit down with you, maybe send you a survey so that we can see what adjustments need to be made to meet your needs so that it works better for you and therefore whoever else fits your demographic, because that's, of course, the target audience. So we need to make sure whatever it is we're releasing meets their need. Therefore, we need their feedback. They know what works best for them. You know what works best for you, and that's great because that's a starting point. But release it, get some feedback, and then make adjustments from there. We need to stop waiting for clarity to decide and decide to create clarity, because clarity is not going to come as we sit there and overthink. It will come once we decide to create clarity by moving forward and taking that action. So if readiness isn't what's required, what is? Direction. We need to have a direction. It doesn't need to be, we don't need certainty. We need direction. We need to commit to the next step, not to the final outcome. It's like, the best analogy I can think of is a staircase, right? A staircase has many flights of stairs. You don't want to focus on getting to the top of that staircase. I've climbed the CN Tower before as an example. And the CN Tower, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a big tower in Toronto. And we walk up the flights of stairs, right? I think it was either 1,700 steps or somewhere around there. You can look it up. But there's a lot of stairs in there, a lot of flights of stairs. I wasn't focused on getting to the top of the staircase, right, to the top of the CN Tower. I was focused on the next step. I just need to take one step at a time. It's funny because you see people start off running and they're running to the top of it, but then as I kept my pace of just walking at a decent pace, I ended up passing the people who started off running, ironically, right? They were focused on getting to the top of the staircase. They didn't get there quicker than I did because I was just focused on my next step. And of course, focusing on the next step. So the whole point is, with this analogy, is you don't want to focus on getting to the top of the staircase. Maybe focus on the top of that flight of stairs, but the real focus comes down to the next step that you're taking, right? Up that stair, and then eventually get to the top of that flight of stairs. Focus on the next one and just keep going until you get to the top of the CN Tower. So again, commitment to the next step, not to the final outcome. We need to have a willingness to adjust. And being a recovering perfectionist, I understand this. We don't need to have a perfect product or solution or the perfect system or everything mapped out. We just need to have enough to take a step and again, get that feedback, make the adjustments. We don't need to be right. We need to be willing to adjust. Therefore, we have to release whatever we have so that we can make an adjustment. And one thing that I think will help us with that is to realize that most decisions aren't permanent, but indecision, that can last a long time with long-term costs. If we sit there and we have decisions to be made, there's 2 decisions, there's 3 decisions, however many, it can take us a month, it can take us 3, 6, it could take us a year or 2. If we sit there with that indecision, that's a real cost, because that's a lot of time just to make a simple decision. However, if we had made a decision and went with it, we would have gotten feedback, we would have been able to iterate, and we would have been a lot quicker to make movement, if you will. We would have known a lot sooner than 12 months or 6 months that this thing works or this thing doesn't work so well. We got the feedback, we can make the adjustment. Okay, we re-released it because we iterated and it's better. People are liking it. That could happen within a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 tops. But if we sit there undecided in our indecisiveness, we don't get that feedback. We don't know what adjustments need to be made. And further to this point, making a decision is the way to go, because the decision is not going to trap you, but indecision, that is what will trap you. Which brings us to the next piece, how to move forward without forcing confidence. One of the ways to do that is to decide on direction, not on emotion. We are humans, emotional creatures, if you will. However, if we decide on emotion, that's where we run into problems. A lot of people who decide on emotion, think about the last time you acted purely based on emotion. Your emotions were high and you reacted. You never act on emotion through preparation. You react to emotion. And when you react to situations, you react to life instead of preparing. That's when things can go sour. That's when things can typically go wrong. And again, you can think of some times when emotions were high and you acted on that emotion, the outcome probably wasn't so great. So decide based on direction, not emotion. Where are you going? Where do you want to be? On this map of your life, you're currently here. You want to get over here. The step you take, the decisions you make need to lead you on the right path to get to this destination. But if you act on emotion, you might be taking yourself over this way, which is obviously the wrong direction. So decide based on direction. Shrink the decision to the next executable step. Again, we go back to that staircase. The next step that you've got to take, and just keep stepping one at a time until you get to the top of that CN Tower, the top of that staircase. And then of course you can celebrate a little bit. Let the feedback replace the overthinking. Feedback should be our default. We have a decision to be made. We take 5 seconds, 10 seconds, however long. we make a decision, depending on the gravity, of course, of the decision, but we make a decision, we get that feedback, we iterate, and we re-release it, right? Or we do whatever we need to do to stay on that path. Because here's the thing, again, you've heard me say this. Unsuccessful people, they make decisions slowly and they change them quickly. Successful people, they make decisions quickly and they change them slowly. So if we are constantly being indecisive and not making a decision, sitting there overthinking, we're already doing ourselves a disservice, because it is taking up brain power. It is taking up room in your mind. Just make a decision and move. As an example, there's a list of things that I got to do right now. I'm flying out next week at the time of this recording to go to a friend's wedding. I'll put it that way. However, there's a list of things I've got to do beforehand. It's a week prior right now, as I said, and my mind has been so overloaded from my logical brain, just focus on these things I've got to get done. Because a lot of these things have been sitting there for a while. I knew this wedding was coming up, but I haven't gotten them done yet. So those things sitting on my brain and weighing on my mind, me sometimes overthinking whatever needs to be done, it's taking up brain power. It's taking up energy. It is taking up space in my mind. Instead of me just making a decision, let's say on the speech, for example, that I've got to write, and then making that decision, maybe getting some feedback on it and iterating, as opposed to it just sitting in my mind. Action needs to be our default. We need to take action. I need to write the speech, maybe say it to one or two people, get some feedback, make adjustments if need be. But it's been sitting on my mind and I haven't done it yet. So of course, it's bogging me down. Action needs to be our default. Trust the movement more than your mood. There's times where, of course, we don't want to do anything. We don't want to take that action. We don't want to take that step. We don't want to decide. The average person, again, makes about 35,000 decisions in a day. That's a whole lot of decisions. You've heard decision fatigue before. That can lead to decision fatigue. If we add one or two extra things on there, we add an extra 5 to 10 decisions on there, that will lead to decision fatigue. The more we can minimize the decisions we have to make, the better. And the quicker we can make decisions instead of letting it sit on our brains, I think will help us to avoid that decision fatigue, because it's a default. Okay, one or two, I'm going with two, simple. And here's the thing, most often, whichever decision we go with, it'll work out. It's fine. We just have to pick and then make that decision work. It's not about making the right decision. It's about making a decision and making that decision right. Work it until it becomes the right decision. Once we make that decision the right decision, we'll gain a level of confidence, because confidence is a byproduct, not a prerequisite. It is a byproduct of taking action and getting that feedback. I had to tell myself this recently, a few times throughout my life actually. If you keep waiting to feel ready, you'll keep postponing the clarity that you're looking for. Waiting to feel, it's not going to work. There's no thinking your way into clarity, as I said earlier. We need to take action, which will help us to get to that clarity. So identify one decision you've been avoiding and define the smallest step that would give you some real feedback to take today or this week. A one simple step, small step, that'll give you real feedback that you can take action on. And hey, if you're listening to this and you know you're stuck, not because you're lazy, but because you're overthinking every single move, I want to be clear who I work with. I work with entrepreneurs to help them cut through the noise and make one clear decision, build a simple execution plan that they can follow through on. This isn't about motivation, it's about clarity, it's about structure, and it's about accountability. If you're done spiraling and spinning and want help moving forward, check out the Apex Self Mastery Clarity call below, because you don't need to feel ready to move forward. You simply need a clear direction and the next step. So I know this was helpful for you. Share it out with somebody who you know can benefit. Hit that like button. Appreciate you for stopping by and subscribing. And remember, success isn't a destination, it's a spectrum. So keep evolving. Kadeem here, and I'll see you on the next one.